Welcome, everyone. This is Reverend John Turner. I'll be leading services for Sunday, February 14th. But first, I wanted to go over our order of service and the elements we'll be using for our service today. First, we'll be chanting the Sambutsuge on page 33 in our service book. And you can also download a PDF from the ocbuddhist.org website. Then we'll have a very special musical offering by the Cherry Blossoms, a trio of young women. 3 on our list here will be the selected saying number 6 on page 14. Then I will give a Dharma talk. And then we'll close again with selected saying number 6 on page 14. And then we'll review any announcements for the coming weeks. So first, before we chant, we gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts, Naman Dabuts. And we bring our service book to our forehead. Kogen Gege Ejen Mungoku Nyoze Emyo Muyo Tosha Nichigatsumani Shuko Enyo Kaishitsu Onpe Yunyaku Jumoku Nyorai Yogen Chose Murin Shogaku Daion Koru Jipo Kaimon Shojin Sanmai Chie Hitoku Muryo Shushoke U Jindai Zennen Shobutsu Hokai Gujin no Kugo Gaitai Mumyo Yokunu Seison Yomu Nino Shishi Jin toku muryo kukun konai chi e jimyo komyo iso shindo nai sen Ganga sabutsu sai sho ho kado shoji mi fuge datsu fuse jo i kai nin shonin nyoze sanmai chi e jo go se tokubutsu fugyo shigan isai kuku isai daion keshi ubutsu yakusen no kuman muryo nai sho shunyo goja kuyo itsai shito shobutsu funyo gudo kensho fugyaku hinyo goja shobutsu sekai bufu kage mushu setsudo gomyo shisho henshi shokoku nyoze shojin injin nanro ronga sabutsu kokudo dai ichi goshu kimyo dojo chosetsu kokunyo nai on nimu toso gato aimin dodatsu isai jiporai sho shinnetsu shoujo ito ga koku keiraku annon kobutsu shimyo ze ga shinsho hotsugan no hi riki sho shoyoku jipo se son chi e muge joro shi son chi ga shingyo keiro shin shi shoku doku chu gangyo shonin ninju fuge namandabu 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 gani shiku doku byodo sei dohon bonai ishin hojo an lako. Namandavats, 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 namandavats. Well, thank you very much. It sounded beautiful on my end, and I'm sure it did on yours. So next, in our service order, will be the song Namo Amidabatsu as presented by the Cherry Blossoms. We've heard them before. They sang My Pain and My Joy for us recently. The trio consists of Emily Yoshihara, Lisa Horikawa, and Miko Shudo. And they've been very gracious in their generosity of sharing this musical offering with us. So please enjoy Namo Amidabatsu by the Cherry Blossoms.
This is so much better. Okay, I can actually look at you. Okay. We live so hard for something that brings us happiness. We tend to look outside ourselves and forget what we have within. We put our hands together to find peace in our days. The present moment is all we have. Don't let it slip away. If we close our eyes, remember all that we have. Our hearts will feel a brighter day. We'll sing Namo Amida, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida, Namo Amida Butsu. Sometimes we get overwhelmed
So thank you very much. That was gorgeous. Namo Amida Butsu, exactly. So thank you to the Cherry Blossoms. This is their second musical offering at OCBC, and they volunteered to donate more musical offerings in the future, so we can all look forward to that. So next, we will get out our service books, and we will turn to page 14, number 6. Again, I tried to find a selected saying that will resonate with the Dharma talk. So this is Shakyamuni Buddha's deathbed address. These are his last words before he passed away at 80 years of age on February 15th, commonly known as Nirvana Day. One of his main disciples, Ananda, from the larger sutra, was beside himself and really distraught that Buddhism was going to lose their teacher in human form. And the Buddha tells this to Ananda, that if you only see my form, then you haven't really seen the Buddha. The real Buddha is in the words and the teachings, and perhaps even the sound of Namo Amida Butsu. So if we could put our hands together. Therefore, Ananda, be a lamp unto yourself, be a refuge to yourself. Take yourself to no external refuge. Hold fast to the truth as a lamp. Hold fast to the truth as a refuge. Look not for a refuge in anyone besides yourself. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you. So, we record our Dharma talks in advance so that we have time to edit them properly and get them up on YouTube. And so we have to look ahead on our calendar, and we would like our Dharma talks to be timely. So February 14th is Valentine's Day, and I'm wearing my pink tie. But I kind of talked about the importance of women and wives at the Shotsuki Hoyo for February 6th. Today, there's another holiday that I think is a little bigger than Valentine's Day. It is Nirvana Day, and this is on February 15th, when the Buddha passed away at 80 years old. But I'd like to talk about the title of this day and the confusion between Nirvana Day and Bodhi Day. And there's also a third holiday, Hanamatsuri, and they all come around this time of year from December to April. And I kind of wanted to highlight them and talk about them and why they are so important. So I wanted to show you some of my statues in my home. They're all quite different from one another, and that's because they represent one of these three very important remembrances for the historical Buddha that Buddhists honor all over the world. So this is my Hanamatsuri statue. This is the baby Buddha, just born out of his mother's ribs, because he's a warrior, symbolic of being a warrior. And then his story foreshadows his life. In a sense, he's reborn as the Buddha, symbolically. He comes into the world, realizing insight, and then he takes 7 steps, symbolizing that he's transcended the 6 realms by taking that 7th step. And then he points to the sky, and then he points to the earth. And when I first started coming to OCBC, I didn't know who this little baby was. It didn't look like the sitting Buddha to me. And I thought, the first thing I thought of was John Travolta in Saturday Night Fever. So it can be confusing. So this is how the story starts. This is the infant Buddha. And I found these kanji on the internet. He's pointing up. That first character in the upper left corner is the Chinese character for heaven. Not a Christian heaven, but the heavens, right? The heavens above, the universe, the sky, the stars. And that next character is literally the character for above, the top shelf. So he points throughout the heavens. And then on the right, we have the heavens, but the symbol for below. So this means the earth below. So the Buddha proclaims, after 7 steps, after being reborn and taking 7 steps, he realizes his true self. He realizes Namo Amida Butsu. And he says, throughout the heavens and earth, I alone am the most honored one. And so he's not referring to his personal identity. He's not referring to what kind of a great king he might be. He's referring to the true self, the authentic self. And when one realizes this, this is the greatest realization of all. So this is the true self as Namo Amida Butsu, crying out almost the way a baby does when it first speaks. This is reality making itself known, formless reality taking form and making itself known to human beings as the Buddha Dharma and Namo Amida Butsu. And then another one of my favorite statues, the baby Buddha statue was donated to OCBC, and I was able to acquire it. This statue is the historical Buddha in meditation pose under the Bodhi tree. And he looks like he's actually holding the bowl of sweetened milk and yogurt that he received from Sujata. A good friend of mine, when I programmed as a programmer at my previous job, went to China, I believe it was Shanghai, to train programmers. And he went far up into the hills, away from the tourist trap of the city, and he found me this authentic cast iron Buddha. And luckily he bought this long before 9/11, or he never would have been able to get it through customs. So this Buddha must weigh, I don't know, 5 pounds. It's one of my prized possessions. The hand position, the mudra, is in the meditation pose. So this is the Buddha at 35 years old, awakening under the Bodhi tree early in the morning. So this is another one of my, and I love the patina on it, that turquoise oxidation on this Buddha. So this is another one of my most favorite Buddhas, but totally different posture. Rather than walking, we have a sitting Buddha. And then another one of my very favorite Buddhas. These are really hard to find. I've never seen one anywhere. This is not the sleeping Buddha. He is not sunbathing. He's not swimming the side stroke in a pool. This is the Buddha at 80 years old, about to pass away and enter Nirvana, complete and total enlightenment. Our previous Buddha realized awakening early in the morning, facing to the east. This Buddha is passing away and realizing complete nirvana, total enlightenment. His head pointing north, but he's looking towards the west, to the Western Pure Land, to the end of his journey. And this was done late in the evening. And rather than under a Bodhi tree, he's between two twin solitaries. So another totally different position. He's not standing, he's not sitting, he's lying down. This is his last days and hours before he passes away. So, to go through these in chronological order, we have April 8th, Hanamatsuri. Queen Maya's dream signals good fortune to the Indian audience. And the Buddha birth story foreshadows his life. He is reborn, transcends the 6 realms, and realizes the true self as Namo Amida Butsu. And then this is an image from the PBS documentary, The Buddha, narrated by the great Tibetan Buddhist, Richard Gere. I really like this. This is Buddha early in the morning, the morning star, facing east on December 8th, realizing Bodhi, realizing the mind of awakening. So this is commonly called Bodhi Day. And then here we have the deathbed scene. The Buddha lying down, his head, the top of his head is pointing north. He's looking to the west, the setting sun. And these are his 5 disciples in front, and perhaps Ananda, Moggallana, Sariputra, Kajapa. You see lay people in the back right background. And so they are all here as the Buddha begins to pass away in what is commonly called Nirvana Day. But I wanted to talk a little bit about how these names of holidays, I think, have gotten a little confusing. And it's also a little confusing because there's a lot of similar elements. We have the tree for Bodhi Day, the Bodhi tree for Bodhi Day. We have the twin solid trees for Nirvana Day. We also have the Buddha receiving two of the most important meals in his life. This is the one from Sujata. This is that bowl of sweetened milk that my statue was holding. This is the Buddha facing to the east, preparing to realize awakening and realize Namo Amida Butsu early in the morning under the Bodhi tree. So he considers this, up to this point, the most important meal of his life. And later on, Sujata becomes one of the first female followers in the Buddhist Sangha. So she plays a very key role. This meal gave him the strength to practice and realize insight. And then the second most important meal of his life, he said, was the meal he received from Kunda. He was a blacksmith. He made the Buddha a dinner, a meal. Some say it was mushrooms. A lot of scholars now say it was pork. But it was a bad pork. It was tainted. And the Buddha came down with some type of intestinal problem, maybe food poisoning. And it was a very human death. He was in pain. It took several days. It wasn't a miraculous death. It was fully human. And he considered this another one of the most important meals in his life because he had reached partial enlightenment and now he realizes full and complete parinirvana. So there's a lot of symbolism in these stories. I've mentioned before, we don't really read these for historical, literal fact, but as Buddhists, we look toward the meaning of the story. So this is a different textual tradition that we have in Buddhism that is much different than that maybe in Christianity. We're looking for meaning. We're trying to understand what is the message, what is it trying to tell us. So one of the interesting things, an establishing shot, was that the Buddha at 35 under the Bodhi tree is facing east. And this is occurring in the morning at sunrise. And then when the Buddha passes away, he's facing in the opposite direction. He's facing west. And it's at night, referring to sunset. So you could see this as a journey. He realizes Bodhi, and then the next 45 years of his life, he practices, he teaches, he walks the Buddha way. And so what starts in the east for 45 years ends when the sun sets in the west. And I think you could see maybe this symbol of the West is reminding Pure Land Buddhists of the Western paradise as one nears death. So I mentioned that I think February 15th should have been entitled Parinirvana. Pari means complete, total nirvana. And Bodhi Day, I think, is the one that should have been called Nirvana Day. This is where the Buddha realizes nirvana in the morning facing east. We might even think of this as we do Shinjin. And we mentioned that he's under the Bodhi tree. So when you read Buddhist sutras and they talk about the Buddha's enlightenment, they make it very clear which one they're talking about. Are they talking about the one under the Bodhi tree facing east? Or are they talking about the one under the twin solid trees facing west? And they're very clear in the texts that these are two separate events. And this one is considered to be a partial awakening. They call it awakening with remainder. The Buddha was still fully human, and he still had the three poisons. He still had anger, ignorance, and greed, but he was able to see them now clearly. They didn't take over. He was mindful and self-aware and was able to transcend these feelings by having focus on something more meaningful, and that would be the Buddhist path. So this is the partial awakening, not pari awakening. So this would be Nirvana Day, I would argue, is a better name for December 8th. And then here we have parinirvana. This is complete and total awakening. All delusions, all cravings are gone as one approaches death in the evening, facing the Western Pure Land. So, again, in the texts, it's very clear that if they'll refer to it as awakening under the twin solitaries, awakening facing west. This is a different event, a different quality, a different depth. So this would be not Shinjin, but this would be realizing complete and total awakening, becoming a full Buddha as one passes away. So this is represented even in the Buddha's life story. It's not something unique to Pure Land Buddhism. And this is called awakening without remainder. And the remainder that is gone is this remainder of anger, ignorance, and greed. The remainder, the residue of delusion or ignorance or blind passions are completely gone. There is no remainder of these difficulties or suffering as one loses form and the wave returns back to the ocean of oneness, back to the ocean of Namo Amida Butsu. So you could think of this as perfect awakening, perfect enlightenment. They also use the word complete. So it's very clear in the texts that there are these two enlightenment events. And I think this fits very well with our tradition. You have insight into your everyday life. You're still fully human. You still deal with the anxieties and stress of what it means to be human. But Namo Amida Butsu has completely changed the way you see the world and has touched your heart, and you've embodied it. And when we pass away, we become one with it. We return back to the source of Namo Amida Butsu. So I wanted to give you a couple examples of this from the text. And it's even more meaningful when it comes from our own tradition. There are 48 vows that Dharmakara makes in the larger sutra. It's his 48 promises or aspirations or New Year's resolutions to become a fully realized Buddha at his passing. And so I could have picked any one of the vows. I picked vow number 17, but this always confused me because there's two Buddhas going on here highlighted in yellow. So they all read in this basic structure. If when I become a Buddha, I don't accomplish these things, then may I not attain perfect enlightenment on my passing. So it's like, I'm a Buddha now, I've got to do these things to be complete. So if when I attain Buddhahood, the countless Buddhas throughout the worlds in the 10 directions, the 10 quarters, should not all glorify and praise my name and say Namo Amida Butsu, then may I not attain perfect enlightenment. So here we have Dharmakara, who talks about when I attain Bodhi, when I attain Nirvana, if I'm not able to accomplish these things throughout my life of practice, may I not attain perfect, complete, full enlightenment as I near my eve of death. There's also a really wonderful example from this book. It's called Gotama Buddha, and it's a biography based on the most reliable texts. So this book really tries to get at the historical Buddha. And it reads like a historical novel. He takes pieces of stories from all the different texts and kind of weaves them into a biography. And it's by Hajime Nakamura. And this is one of my favorite quotes. It's on page 169. He talks about how the Buddhist texts were constructed and how they were passed on in an oral tradition. And so this is kind of a critical analysis of the texts. He says, people of that time regarded delusions as continuing after enlightenment. He says, I consider this to be of great importance. The human being known as Gotama did not, upon awakening, become a completely different kind of being, a perfect being, impervious to harm. Even after becoming a Buddha, he possessed weaknesses and could be pursued and tempted by desires. So this is a very encouraging thing. As a Pure Land Buddhist, the Buddha was still an everyday person. He had insight, he had shinjin, he practiced and walked the path for 45 years, but he was not some kind of otherworldly being, untouched by the human condition. He was immersed in life. We talked at Shotsuki about how he still had a wife. You don't think about it, but the Buddha's wife was Yoshodhara. The Buddha had a son, Rahula. He had a father, Suddhodana. He went in and out of the monasteries. It's not like Buddhists at the time of the Buddha, monastics, went into a monastery for the rest of their life. They went in during the rainy season out of necessity and practiced, and then they would come out when the weather changed, and they would travel on foot throughout the city on begging rounds and interacting with everyday people. And so this spark of humanity that still exists, I agree with Nakamura, is very encouraging. It means that it's something we can also do. We don't have to become something other than we are. We just have to become aware. And we chanted the Sambutsuge today. I think this is the 5th or 6th stanza. It's one of my favorites. You may remember we went mu myo yokunu, sei son yomu. And it gets translated into English in this way. Ignorance, greed, and anger are completely absent in the world honored one. So this is where, as Nakamura was discussing, that over time, the Buddha was aggrandized. It's how the students saw him. He became more and more grand. His qualities became perhaps overstated, but it was to encourage people to practice. And it's how the students saw him. But likely this is not how the Buddha saw himself. He was still human. So if we look at the kanji here, and we look at the romaji, we'll see that mu, that's the character for no. It's a negator. And then myo, the second character on the top line, is the character for light. Yoku is greed. And nu is anger. And then sei is a relatively simple character, first character of the second line. That means the world. So whenever you see that character, it's the world. And son means to be honored. So this is the world honored one. That would be the Buddha. And yo, that's the same character as a taikyo. It means duration. So it's duration. You know, it's not existence or time, but it's how long something lasts. And then again, mu is a negator. So mumyo, no light, is the way Chinese Buddhists, this is a couple, a pair, means ignorance. If there's no light, there's ignorance. So ignorance, greed, and anger, the 3 poisons. And then we have the world honored one doesn't last. So a better way of translating this perhaps is the 3 poisons for the Buddha, they do not last long. So that's what makes him a Buddha after his partial enlightenment, the Shinjin under the Bodhi tree at 35. These things, these 3 poisons, no longer last long. They come and they go. Their duration is short. That's what makes a Buddha a Buddha. So I wanted to go back, and hopefully these statues have a little bit more meaning. We have the Buddha's life story being foretold by this statue, being reborn into a new existence, taking 6 steps and 1 more, transcending the earthly realms of the wheel of life, and then realizing his true self, realizing Namo Amida Butsu, and realizing that throughout the heavens and the earth, that the true self is the most honored one. It is the most authenticity one can have when they live their lives. So that is foretelling, foreshadowing of the meaning of Namo Amida Butsu. And then we have the Buddha at 35 facing east in the morning, realizing Nirvana, realizing Namo Amida Butsu. Still fully human, and yet different. It's a 180-degree turn, as Dr. Haneda would describe. And different Buddhist traditions see this story through a different lens. In the Jodo Shinshu tradition, we would say the Buddha saw his true self. He saw anger, ignorance, and greed as essential characteristics of the human condition. And by seeing it, he was able to transcend it. So in Buddhism, we don't get rid of things. We transcend things. We move beyond those things. They no longer have a hold on us, even though they still exist. And then lastly, this will happen to all of us. At the end of life, at the end of our journey, from going from east to west, from a rising sun at our birth to a setting sun as we passed in the Western Pure Land, the Buddha reaches parinirvana, complete and total enlightenment, and realizes the Pure Land on the eve of his death. He becomes one with Namo Amida Butsu. He returns back to formless reality, shedding his human form and becoming one with all things, with the sound echoing through the universe of Namo Amida Butsu for others to hear. So just like the 17th vow, we're all saying Namo Amida Butsu, and the Buddha and all Buddhas are able to return from where they came back to infinite reality and manifest form for us and lead us towards awakening as well. So I hope you'll have a happy Nirvana Day, even though I think it would be better if we all refer to it as Pari Nirvana Day on February 15th. If you could join me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. So next, in closing, we will listen to the Buddha's last words on his deathbed between the twin solid trees as he sought to relax and ease and console Ananda, that the Buddha was not a physical body. It's the teachings and the sound and the truth of Namo Amida Butsu. So if you could please join me in Gasho. Therefore, Ananda, be a lamp unto yourself. Be a refuge to yourself. Take yourself to no external refuge. Hold fast to the truth as a lamp. Hold fast to the truth as a refuge. Look not for a refuge in anyone besides yourself. Namo Amida Butsu, 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 Namo Amida Butsu. So my first announcement will be to think about Parinirvana Day and what it means within our tradition on Monday, February 15th. We also have some other announcements. We have the Project Kokoro online craft boutique. And here's a link that you can follow, ocbuddhist.org/pk-crafts-boutique. New items are added weekly, and you can pick up and shipping options are available due to COVID-19. And the website is frequently updated with new merchandise and objects. So please check often. And then as we do each Sunday, when we have regular family services, Dharma School will meet. So class meetings for February 14th will be Sakura and Momo, that's the pre-K class, Yuri and Kikyo, 2nd and 3rd grade classes, Ume, 4th grade, and Ayame, 8th grade, will be meeting today through Google Classroom. So I wanted to thank you very much I want you to have a happy Valentine's Day. I hope for all the men out there, this isn't the first time you've heard about it today. I hope you planned ahead. And I hope that you have an even more important and more meaningful Parinirvana Day on February 15th. Please close service with me in Gasho. Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu, Namo Amida Butsu. Thank you very much.